It was nearly dark when the judge's gavel fell. And with it, the last piece of my composure. I don't remember walking out of the courtroom. I just remember the air heavy, wet, metallic, and the feeling that the city itself was watching me fall apart. Philadelphia in late November doesn't forgive easily. The wind stings. The lights lie. And when you've just lost the one thing you've spent your life fighting for, the whole world sounds like it's whispering you should have seen it coming. My name is Claire Bennett. I'm 32 years old. A single mother. And as of 5 hours ago, the state decided my ex-husband deserved our son more than I did. They said he had stability, a big house, money, influence, all the things that look good on paper. What they didn't see what I'd spent years hiding, were the bruises that didn't leave marks, the gaslight that made me question my own sanity, the silence that grew like mold in every corner of my life. He smiled at me when the judge ruled in his favor, that same charming, public smile that had fooled everyone except me. When I walked out of the courthouse, the rain had already started, small drops at first, then heavier, colder, the kind of rain that feels personal. I pulled my coat tighter and headed toward the parking lot, rehearsing every possible version of, "I'll be fine," that I didn't believe. Then, out of nowhere, a black car eased to a stop beside me. Sleek. Geared. Too clean for this part of the city. The window rolled down. The man inside wasn't a lawyer, though he looked like one at first glance. Press suit. Watch that probably cost more than my car. Posture that said he was used to being obeyed, but his eyes, they didn't match the rest of him. Calm. Deliberate. But tired, like someone who's seen everything worth fearing and learned not to flinch anymore. "Ems. Bennett," he said. His voice was low, measured. "You look like someone who just ran out of choices." I froze. "Do I know you?" He smiled slightly. "Not the friendly kind." "No. But I know him." Something inside me tightened. "My ex," he nodded once. "Evan Bennett. He owes me money. A great deal of it." I took a step back, but his tone stayed even. "Relax. I'm not here to collect." "Then why are you here?" He paused, studying me like a puzzle. "Because I don't like seeing people used as leverage, especially women who never asked to play the game." I wanted to walk away. I should have. But something in his words, the steady confidence, the absence of pity, made me stop. "What game?" I asked. "The one your ex is playing. He's planning to move your son out of state," he said simply. "Tomorrow." I felt my stomach drop. "That's not possible. The court can't stop him fast enough." My pulse started to pound. "How do you know that?" He didn't answer right away. "Then, let's just say I have ways of knowing things, before other people do." I took another step back. Heart racing. "Who are you?" He leaned forward slightly. The rain hit the car roof in steady rhythm. "My name is Dominic Morello." The name landed like a rumor I'd heard before, whispered over news reports, murmured by people who knew better than to say it too loudly. "The Morello family," I said quietly. He didn't confirm or deny it. He didn't need to. Instead, he looked past me, toward the courthouse steps. "You're standing on a battlefield, Claire. You just don't know it yet." I shook my head. "I'm not part of your world. Not yet," he said softly. Then the light turned green, and the car pulled away, leaving me standing in the rain with a name echoing in my head, and the terrifying thought that maybe he was right. I didn't see him again for 3 days. In that time, I barely slept. I tried to call my lawyer. He said his hands were tied. I tried to call my ex. He didn't answer. By the 3rd night, I was out of options and out of hope. That's when I found myself standing outside an office building downtown, clutching the note I'd found in my mailbox that morning. A solution exists. 9 p.m. D. Morello. 3rd floor. I told myself I wouldn't go in. That I'd just look at the building. Maybe find the courage to turn back. But courage has a strange way of showing up when you're already too far gone to care. The elevator doors opened to a space that smelled like leather and espresso. The windows overlooked the city, like it belonged to him. And maybe it did. He was sitting behind a desk, reading a file. Mine. You came, he said, not looking up. I shouldn't have. No one ever should, he replied. But here we are. He gestured to the chair across from him. I sat, partly because I was shaking too much to stand. You know why you're here, he said. I don't. I lied. He closed the file. Your ex-husband thinks he can buy time. He's already transferring assets under your son's name. It won't stop there. I tried to swallow, but my throat was dry. Why are you telling me this? I met my eyes. Because you don't deserve to lose what's yours, just because you trusted the wrong man. And what do you get out of helping me? I asked. He leaned back, folding his hands. Let's call it balance. I waited. He continued. Marry me. And no one touches your son. The words didn't land immediately. They just floated there. Impossible. Absurd. You can't be serious. I am. You don't even know me. I know enough. Enough to think I'd agree to be your wife. Out of gratitude. No. He said. Voice steady. Out of necessity. My pulse quickened. Why would you even want that? He stood and walked to the window. The city lights reflected off the glass. Sharp and endless. Because a man like me doesn't get to have peace. But he can protect it in someone else. I stared at him. And what happens when the deal is done? You walk away. He said simply. Free. Safe. Untouched. Something inside me cracked. Not belief. Not trust. Just exhaustion. He handed me a folder. Inside were legal documents. Already drafted. Clean. Professional. Too real. It wasn't a proposal. It was an escape route. We were married 2 days later. No guests. No family. No flowers. Just a notary. 2 signatures. And a silence that felt heavier than any vow. When he slid the ring onto my finger, I waited for the chill of regret, but instead, I felt something else. Something quieter. His eyes met mine. And for the briefest second, the man everyone feared looked almost gentle. This doesn't make you mine, he said. It makes you untouchable. The words shouldn't have felt like safety. But they did. Afterward, he handed me a set of keys and an address. A house outside the city. Safe. Yours until you want to leave. I nodded, unable to speak. As I turned to go, he said one last thing. Claire. I looked back. If you ever start to feel afraid again, he said, remember, fear is just the body's way of asking for protection. And you have it now. That night, I lay in a bed that didn't creak. In a house that didn't echo with threats, the ring felt heavy on my hand. Not because it meant I belonged to someone, but because it meant I might finally stop running. I didn't know if I could trust him. I didn't even know if I should. But as I listened to the rain outside, something inside me whispered that maybe this was what starting over sounded like. Not laughter. Not promises. Just the quiet hum of safety, where fear used to live. That night, I didn't marry a man. I married safety, and prayed it wouldn't destroy me. Dominic's house wasn't what I expected from a man like him. It wasn't gold or marble or guards at every corner. It was quiet. Still. Clean lines. Palo walls. Every object chosen with intent. The kind of place that doesn't show off power, just control. It smelled faintly of cedar and rain. The floors didn't creak. The air didn't echo. It was the opposite of Evan's house. The one where every silence felt like a warning. For the first time in years, I didn't feel like I had to keep my voice low. The guest room he gave me had soft sheets and windows that looked out over a garden. Not fences or walls. He told me I could come and go as I pleased. But the irony was, I didn't want to go anywhere. For the first time, I wasn't planning an escape. The first few mornings were strange. He didn't hover. He didn't talk much. He moved around the kitchen with quiet precision, making breakfast for himself like he'd done it all his life. There were no servants. No bodyguards pacing the halls. Just him. Me. And my son. Eli. On the second morning, Eli wandered into the kitchen. Clutching his toy truck, Dominic glanced at him. Then at me. And nodded toward the chair beside him. Hungry, he asked. Eli nodded. Cautious. Dominique pour céréales. Slid the bowl across the counter. The gesture was simple, but the way he waited, for Eli to take the first bite unhurried. Patient was something I hadn't seen in years. After breakfast, he brought out a chessboard. The pieces were old, worn smooth by time. You know how to play? Dominic asked. Eli shook his head. Dominic smiled faintly. Then we'll start with the pawns. They're small. But they matter. They sat in silence for nearly an hour. Eli's brow furrowed. Dominic's voice calm. Explaining rules in that same steady tone he used for everything. I stood by the doorway, watching them, my son, who had only ever known fear from men, and this stranger, who somehow didn't scare him at all. Every night, before heading upstairs, Dominic would say goodnight. Always the same one step into the doorway. A small nod. A quiet goodnight. Claire. It wasn't romantic. It wasn't anything. And yet, it was everything. That word goodnight hadn't meant peace in years. It used to mean slammed doors and silence that lasted until morning. Now it sounded like permission to rest. The shift happened without me realizing it. One night, I woke from a nightmare. Evan's voice still in my ears. His anger. His hands. The hallway lights were dim. The world spinning. I must have made a sound. Because suddenly, Dominic was there. Not touching me. Not demanding I explain. Just there, his presence solid. His voice low. You're safe here. Claire. The way he said it steady. Factual didn't feel like comfort. It felt like truth. He didn't move closer. But I could feel his calm filling the space between us. You don't have to run anymore. Something inside me cracked. He didn't cry. He just breathed. For the first time in years, my lungs didn't hurt. I nodded. And he walked me back to my room. Before he left, he said quietly, "You're safe." And somehow, for reasons I didn't understand, I believed him. The next day, I saw him in a different light. Not the kind of man I'd been told to fear, but someone carrying the weight of his own ghosts. That night, over tea, I asked him why he lived alone in a house so big it could swallow the both of us. He didn't look up from his cup. Because it's easier than living with what's missing. I waited. He glanced out the window, where the garden lamps glowed faintly. My wife. He hesitated. Searching for words. She believed I could be a better man. I proved her wrong. The air shifted. Softer, somehow. I built a world where everyone obeys, he said finally. And then I realized obedience isn't the same as peace. I didn't say anything. There was nothing to fix. Nothing to promise. So I just listened. And for a man used to control, I think that was the greatest kindness he'd been offered in a long time. Days turned into a rhythm. Quiet. Gentle. Almost ordinary. Eli started to laugh again. Small things at first. He'd ask Dominic to play chess before bed. And Dominic would pretend to lose, shaking his head like it was the end of the world. Pawns. He'd tell him. Are underestimated. When I thanked him for teaching my son, he shook his head. Don't thank me. Just rest. That became our language. Not love. Not promises you stressed. In his world, where everything cost something, rest was the one thing he gave freely, but peace, I was learning, comes with shadows. One evening, I passed his study and heard him speaking on the phone. His voice was low but sharper than I'd ever heard it. No one touches her. Or the boy. He said. A pause. If they do, I'll handle it myself. I froze. His tone was cold. Controlled. The kind of calm that precedes storms. When I stepped back into the hallway, I caught sight of the gun on his desk. Polished. Loaded. Waiting. The realization hit like ice. The man who had become my safety was the same man others whispered about. The man people feared. I should have been terrified. But when he came out a few minutes later and saw me standing there, I didn't see danger. I saw exhaustion. A man who carried his sins like armor. Not pride. He met my eyes. You heard. I nodded. He said. I'm not proud of what I am. But I'm not ashamed of protecting what matters. The words should have sounded like a threat. They didn't. They sounded like truth again. That night, when he tucked Eli into bed, I stood by the door and watched. He smoothed the blanket over my son's shoulder. Gentle. Precise. The kind of gesture that doesn't belong to monsters. Over the next few days, I began to see how he lived with the duality of his world discipline on the outside. Quiet ruin on the inside. He'd spend hours at his desk. Papers spread like a map of decisions no one should have to make. Sometimes, late at night, I'd hear him walking the halls, as if sleep refused to forgive him. But he never crossed lines. Not once. When he looked at me, it wasn't hunger or ownership. It was awareness. And maybe that was what scared me the most, being seen without being claimed. One evening, I walked past his study again. The door was open this time. He was reading by lamplight. Sleeves rolled up. Eyes tired. There was something beautiful in his stillness, like a man trying to stay small, in a life that demanded he be large. I stood there longer than I should have, listening to the faint rustle of paper, the quiet hum of a house, learning how to be a home again. He looked up. Our eyes met. Neither of us spoke. We didn't have to, because in that single moment, I understood something I hadn't since the day I left the courthouse. Safety isn't silence. It's peace. And somehow, in the unlikeliest of places, I'd found it. I came here to be safe. But somehow, I found something even rarer: peace. Peace has a strange way of testing you. Just when you start to believe it's real, the past knocks on your door to see if you'll answer. For weeks, life had fallen into something that almost looked like ordinary. Eli was laughing again. Dominic was quieter, less guarded, almost human. The house, once too big for comfort, had started to sound like home. And then, one morning, everything changed. It was early grey light spilling through the windows. I was in the kitchen packing Eli's lunch when I heard the gate buzzer. Before I could move, Dominic was already there, tension rippling beneath his calm. He looked out the security screen and froze. It's him, he said. Evan. The name alone made my heart stop. I hadn't seen him since the courthouse. But there he was, standing in the rain again this time. without the charm. Without the mask. Il looked desperate. Cornered. Like a man running out of moves. When Dominic opened the door, the air shifted. Two men. Two kinds of power. The one born of fear. And the one born of control. Evan's voice was sharp. You think you can hide her forever? Dominic didn't blink. I'm not hiding anyone. But you should leave before you say something. You can't unsay. Evan stepped forward. Wet hair plastered to his forehead. You think you can play hero? I know who you are. Morello. You think I won't tell the police? The press. Everyone will know what kind of monster you really are. The silence that followed felt like a held breath. Dominic didn't raise his voice. He didn't threaten. He just looked at him. The kind of look that makes the world shrink around a man until there's nowhere left to stand. You've already told everyone who you are, Dominic said softly. You just don't realize it yet. Evan's eyes flicked toward me then. Half sneer. Half plea. You really think this guy can protect you? He'll destroy you. Like he destroys everything else. That's when I stepped between them. Stop, I said. Both of you. Evan turned his anger toward me. You'd rather live with a criminal than come home to your family. I felt something rise inside me that had been silent for years. Anger. Yes. But also truth. I'd rather live with someone dangerous who makes me feel safe than with someone safe who made me afraid. He didn't answer. He just stared shocked. Furious. And then he laughed. You deserve each other. He spat. Then he left, slamming the gate behind him. But even as his footsteps disappeared, I could feel the storm he'd left behind. That night, I found Dominic, sitting alone in his study. Hands folded. Is distant. He didn't look at me when he spoke. He's not done, he said. He's been calling people, threatening to expose things that shouldn't see daylight. What kind of things? He exhaled slowly. Things that could ruin more than me. Men like him when they're desperate. They make everyone pay. I moved closer. Then what are you going to do? He looked up. And for the first time since I'd met him, I saw uncertainty. I'm going to fix it, he said quietly. Even if it costs me. I shook my head. You can't protect me if it destroys you. A faint, broken smile touched his mouth. Maybe I don't need protecting. Maybe I just needed a reason to stop being a monster. The words hit deeper than I expected. This man, built from discipline and regret, was finally showing me the one thing he'd hidden: his own humanity. 2 days later, I woke to find an envelope on the kitchen counter. My name written in his handwriting. Inside plane tickets, documents, and a note that said simply, for you and Ellie. Leave tonight. I found him outside by the car, waiting. You can't ask me to do this, I said. I'm not asking, he replied. I'm giving you a way out. What about you? He looked at me then. And for a second, the calm cracked. People like me don't get out. We just make sure the ones we care about do. I felt tears burn the back of my throat. You taught me not to run, I said. I won't start now. He closed his eyes, jaw tight, like he was fighting himself. Claire. No, I interrupted. If you're going to fight for me, then I get to stand beside you, not behind you. The air between us was thick, heavy, filled with things we couldn't say. He nodded once. Slow. Then we face it together. That was the moment everything shifted. Because love, real love, wasn't him shielding me or me saving him. It was standing side by side. Even when the ground beneath us trembled, the days that followed blurred. Meetings. Phone calls. People coming and going. I didn't know what deals he made, or what promises he broke to protect us. I just knew the fear in his eyes wasn't for himself anymore. Then one morning, The world went still. No calls. No guards. No whispers. Just quiet. When he walked into the kitchen, there was something different in his face relief. Maybe. Or exhaustion that looked too much like peace. It's over, he said. I didn't ask how he knew. I didn't need to. The truth was written in the way he looked at me, like a man who'd finally put down a weapon he'd carried too long. Weeks passed. I moved into a small townhouse in the city, one with cracked walls and too much sunlight. Eli had his own room, painted blue, with space for his books and his laughter. Dominic didn't come around often, but he called. Late at night, his voice steady, grounding. A sound that always made the world feel smaller, safer. Sometimes he'd say nothing at all, just listen to Eli tell him about school, or about the chess games he played against himself. Other times, he'd ask if I was sleeping enough, eating enough, living enough. Those calls felt like breathing unnecessary, until they stopped. And then suddenly vital. One evening, I came home from work to find a familiar car parked by the curb. He was standing by the door. Nasut. No guards. Just a man holding a worn wooden chess set. You said you wanted a normal life, he said. I smiled. And you? He shrugged slightly. That half smile I'd learnt to read. Still learning what normal means. For a moment, neither of us moved. Then I said softly, then stay. Be the good part of it. He stepped closer. The space between us, small but charged. You sure, he asked? I nodded. This time, I'm choosing it. He looked at me for a long moment, then reached up and brushed a strand of hair from my face. No grand declarations. No promises of forever. Just presence. Sometimes that's enough. 6 months later, my life looks nothing like it used to. I run a small non-profit for women, starting over helping them find jobs, housing, safety. We named it Haven House. Eli laughs freely now. He beats me at chess. Every month, the center receives a donation from an anonymous benefactor. I never ask where it comes from. I already know. Sometimes, I still wake up, expecting the past to be waiting outside my window. But then I remember his words. You're safe here. And I believe them. Even when he isn't beside me. They say, love built in danger can't last. But maybe that's because they've never met a man who learned peace from a woman's courage. Maybe safety isn't about where you are. It's about who stands beside you when the world turns dark. And maybe that's what we were. Two storms that finally found their calm. For the first time, love didn't ask me to hide. It asked me to stay. If this story touched your heart tonight, take a moment to breathe. And if you felt something, peace, warmth, maybe even hope, let me know. Click like so. More hearts can find their way to stories like this one. Share it with someone who might need to remember that love can still be gentle, even after the storm. And don't forget to subscribe, because every week, I bring you another journey, where danger meets devotion, and every broken heart finds its way home again. Pause, soft music, continues. Tell me in the comments what part of Claire and Dominic's story stayed with you the most. The moment she stopped running, or the moment he finally learned how to rest. Thank you for listening, and for believing in love that heals.